Activate.
All right, everybody. Welcome to This Pink Cloud. I am DJ Kelly Reverb. Yay.
Hell yeah.
We're a show that's about multiple pathways to recovery, all kinds of mental health issues. Please like, subscribe. Speaking of mental health, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Chad Lamont.
Woo! Hey!
Hey,
hello!
My sister watched the Professor episode with Nolan on it, and she was like, he sounds like Mr. Hanky.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, and now
I think that's on purpose.
I'm a DJ. In my name tag, it says DJ producer and hell yeah advocate.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right.
Hey, so I am excited to have this. I will call them a power couple.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm going to go there. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to say that. But, I mean, it's been forever since we've had this guy on the show, and then we've never had his young lady on the show. Let's give it up for Michael Moulton, M2 The Rock, and his better half, Lee McGuire.
yeah.
Yay.
Hello.
Glad to be
It's
here.
wonderful to be here.
Yeah. So you got the hallelujah music
man.
in the headphones. So Michael Moulton. So tell, you've been on the show, God, what was that, like almost 2 years ago or something?
I think it was longer than that.
Yeah.
It was a while
Well, it
back.
was the original location. So, I mean, obviously not everybody knows your story, but it's a pretty famous story and an amazing story.
Yeah.
To be honest, but why don't we go with a little bit of recap on the story of whence you came?
Holy cow. So,
Leave it wide open.
I'll be quick. I mean, we only got an hour. So it was, it's, I'm in recovery, long-term recovery,
Right.
Drugs and alcohol. And I had my first drink when I was, 10 years old. And the rest is history, and it's interesting when people tell the story. I get tired of it, and when we share our story,
Right.
it was like what it was like and what happened.
Well,
and
you share
what
your
it's
story.
like.
You share your story for a living.
Yeah, I do.
So,
yeah. So you can Google M2
Yeah,
The Rock
right,
and
right,
the story's
right.
out there. And,
Right.
And in fact, you could Google my fifth step. It's out there. I mean, everything's
Right.
out there. And,
Sure.
But I mean, what it was like. I drank alcohol and I did drugs and I fell down and said I was never going to do it again. I meant it and woke
Yeah.
up the next day and I was drunk and high again.
Sure.
But I grew up in a well-to-do family and got early childhood trauma from birth. Being sexually abused and a lot of physical abuse. But in this well-to-do family, and then outside the doors, everything appeared to be normal, and so there's a lot of confusion.
Right.
So literally, I didn't know how to live life. I was living a lie, and grew up in my room, and I grew up in the men's locker room at Glen Eagles Country Club in Plano, Texas, and my dad was a founding member there. So day one it opened, I was out there playing golf, and golf was a big part of my life,
Right.
And it's slowly but slowly unraveled all the way from high school to multiple suicide attempts to then going on the PGA golf tour. I was a caddy for the best golfer in the world for 5 years.
Who was that?
It was Lanny Watkins.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Lanny Watkins back in
Right.
the day. And so I did that, and then
Did you have your note sheet and everything, like where you were like, oh yeah, there's a dog leg left.
Yeah,
we're
that's
going to,
Yeah, I mean, it was. I called myself a fairway engineer.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
I
like
was a
it.
fairway engineer. So it was a great lifestyle for our lifestyle, at the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
And flying private and being all over the world and the
Oh,
best
yeah.
golfer in the world. I mean, it was rock and roll. And
Right.
And I was a bookie. I was the bookie on the PGA tour.
Okay.
And so I did that, and just had a hustle, going
Sure.
on. But the disease got worse and worse. Where I should be having the best time of my life, my life was dark.
Yeah.
I was always living a lie. I never let anybody close to me. I always had around a lot of people with the popular kids. I hung out with them,
Sure.
but no one ever got close to me. And
Right. You probably built up that wall, already.
yeah, as a result of the childhood trauma.
Yeah.
But got off the road in '95 and married a girl I knew since kindergarten. took her hostage,
Right.
and brought her in. We had 2 boys, and when those 2 boys came into my life, something happened. It wasn't spiritual or anything like that, but I really wanted to be the dad that I never had.
Sure.
And I gave it my all. I mean,
Right.
I gave it my all. But I was hiding the drinking, and in 2002, I had an ultimatum that to go to treatment, and so I went to Betty Ford. I was a very successful home
Right.
builder, and
Oh yeah, you were doing home what do they call it? Like not just a general contractor, but you were doing development.
yeah, I was doing
Right.
I did all that, and then I also had my own home building company, and we did high end luxury
Right,
residential.
yeah.
So the air was real thin.
Right.
Where
Was this like South Lake and stuff like that?
no, it was Park
or-
Cities.
Park Cities.
Park
okay.
Cities,
Yeah.
Preston Hollow, Frisco, Plano,
Sure.
and all that. So, really loved that, and it became a drug, and money became my drug, and so, in 2009, my wife at the time had a massive brain hemorrhage and collapsed, and a lot of chaos started happening, and a lot of family fighting and over money and betrayal and all these things started happening, and I didn't have the tools on how to handle it. And so, after Betty Ford, and the reason why I say Betty Ford, because that's where important people like me go, right? I don't say
Right.
treatment.
Yeah.
And I laugh
That's-
about that
yeah.
because I'm a nobody, you know what I mean?
Right.
But that's what we think about ourselves when we're our disease. It's me.
Right.
And
Well,
so-
no, Betty Ford, you automatically go. That's highbrow.
Yeah, like my roommate, right when I got into my room, my roommate was the drummer for 9 Inch Nails.
Oh, nice.
Hell
And,
yeah, dude.
I was there. He was my roommate for 3 days, and I woke up one day and he's gone.
Right.
He bounced. So
Right, sure.
But anyways, I learned a lot there. It was very educational. But
Where was the Betty Ford clinic located then?
in Palm Springs.
Oh, was that
Yeah,
what?
the
Yeah,
Palm
well, dude, the hood of Palm Springs.
He was roughing it.
Yeah, right.
He
Yeah,
was roughing
sure.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got out of there and came back home. I came back home with all my money, all my stuff. I had my boys and the wife at the time, and when I came back home, I was back to the races. I stayed dry literally for about almost 7 years. And so when my wife at the time went down and had this massive brain hemorrhage,
Right.
and all this chaos was happening, I had no tools. I had no person to lean on. I didn't have a mentor, sponsor,
Sure.
or any men in my life. I was self-will run riot.
Right.
And, one of my kryptonites is people accusing me of doing stuff that I didn't do. I ran an honest business.
Yeah.
I'm one of the very few people that, I have no financial amends.
Right.
I paid my bills,
Right.
and so when when stuff like that was happening, it really destroyed me. And so I twisted off really bad.
Yeah.
And then in 2011, I got pulled over just real close to this building here, this studio here. I
Right.
got pulled over with a large amount of cocaine, and I was intoxicated and got arrested for the first time in my life.
Right.
And I went down to Lou Sterrett and got a mugshot. I mean, I was like, this is crazy down here. I mean, this is a jungle.
Yeah. Well, and that was your first time.
That was my
right?
first arrest
Yeah.
ever.
Oh,
and
nice.
I literally said, I'm never doing this again. I meant it. And
Yeah.
I think you can relate to that. Those times like, I'm
Oh,
done. It's over.
Sure.
I'm done. And I really meant it. And I got bonded out, and I got drunk and high again that night.
Yeah.
26 mugshots later.
26.
Yeah, total of 27
dude.
mugshots.
Hold on just a second. I have to give you a golf clap for that one.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
26 is
Yeah.
pretty-
And you
Nice.
say
That's pretty-
you say 26 too, and what was the amount of time that was
27.
in? 27.
Yeah.
What was
And-
the amount of time?
So I did 4 years out of 6 years.
No, I'm saying like what was the amount of time that you got the 27 mugshots in? Because you didn't
Like
start until
the,
right
like
then.
the period of
You're
years.
the first person
Yeah.
to ask that question. See, a lot of times I was getting arrested all up and down Interstate 35, so that's a mug shot. They put a hold on me. They rebooked me back into Dallas. That's another mug shot.
Right.
I was also being served charges that I didn't do, by the ex-in-laws, and while I was incarcerated, and I'm like,
Now that
I
you
wasn't-
didn't
I
do
wasn't
or
even-
you didn't,
yeah, I didn't
think
do.
you did?
No, I didn't do. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
stuff like that.
Right.
And it caught my judge, Judge Jennifer Bennett, right down the street here.
Yeah.
It caught her attention that, man, this guy's, he's taking it for the team. And,
Yeah.
and then also, I sold a $3.7 million home while incarcerated. They released me to sign the title work.
Oh, well, that
the
was
paperwork.
nice.
That's kind of interesting. So, but anyway, so I, after my, 27th mugshot, I knew it was over.
Right,
And
yeah.
Judge Bennett had enough of me.
Right.
And I was going to go to prison for a long time. And And it's interesting this time that they put me, you're classified when you're arrested, and they classified me as an
advanced.
No, advanced. But I become the guys like I saw the very first time I was there. I had my own prison name, and they called me Rabbit, and the guards were saying hi to me when I came back in.
Rabbit.
It was crazy.
Why Rabbit? I gotta ask.
Because I couldn't sit still.
Okay.
I couldn't sit still. And so they misclassified me, and they put me on the second floor at the North Tower.
Okay.
And if anybody knows that, it's called the Jungle. It's the most dangerous floor in the country.
Right.
In jail. So I'm in this, solitary confinement, tank with murderers.
Right.
Murderers. And I get in there, and, I get locked up with this old school. And they called them ooey.
Okay.
And, there was a book that was, given to me, and there's books everywhere, and they used them for pillows. But he asked me, he says, what's that book say? And I told him what it said, and he goes, man, will you read it to me? And I said, why?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I can't read or write. Now, here I am. When I get locked up in the tank, I'm the only white guy in there.
Right.
They think I'm gay or a cop,
right.
I'm proper.
Right. You
used to be.
You get a honey bun on your pillow.
Yeah, that's $5. That's $5.
Right.
So anyways, when so he asked me to read to him, and I read to him.
Okay.
And they called me Rabbit because I would pace and pace and pace and pace around the day room.
Yeah.
And I finally realized that when I was reading to him, 4 days went by. And, to make a long story short, time slowed down.
Right.
And for the first time, I was serving somebody else, expecting nothing in return. Plus, the words were leaping off this book to me, talking about Joseph in the Bible, and I could really relate to it. On July 7th, 2017, I'm on my top bunk, and I couldn't breathe, and had this spiritual awakening. And there was a lot of nights I didn't believe in God or this Jesus thing, and but there were nights where I'm hugging the toilet, and I'm saying, "Okay, Jesus, if you're out there, come into my life." There was a lot of times I'd say that, but this night I couldn't breathe, and it was like the movie Green Mile.
Yeah,
and I couldn't breathe. I took this deep breath, and I just exhaled, and all this anger, resentment, all these feelings came out, and I took a big deep breath in, and I was full of love. And I just looked at everybody like, "I love you, and I'm loving everybody."
Right.
And so, just to leapfrog to it, on October 13th, 2017, I was transferred out of Central Texas on my way to Henderson, the Bradshaw State Unit.
Right, probably with no AC in there.
No AC. And so I get down there, and I'm in this rock and roll tank, and guy comes up to me, he says, "What are you reading?" What do you mean? He goes, "I can't read or write." And I just looked at God, and I said, "I see you."
Right.
So I started reading this guy.
Right.
And then as a result of forgiveness, forgiving the people who done me wrong, on October 13th, they came with a loudspeaker, and, they accidentally set me free. They literally physically pushed me out of the penitentiary.
Well, okay, so how long were you booked to be in there?
Another 2 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then, so how does one accidentally set you free?
God.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a God deal because they didn't know. The computer, even the guards go, "Wait a minute, why are you being set free?"
Yeah.
And so they pushed me out, and I was 300 miles away. I didn't know what to do.
Henderson, Texas, huh?
No, I was in my way. I was down in Central Texas.
Okay.
I was on chain.
Okay.
And so...
You mean like breaking rocks?
No, I was on chain.
No. Chain is like when you're like subject to leave.
Yeah, you're on chain.
You're on your
chain ready, baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I had to explain all this to Lee too.
Sorry. Sorry, guys. I haven't been incarcerated.
Yeah, yet. So, anyways, I got out, and that's the first time when the gas of the world hit me, and I literally just said, "God, what do you want me to do?" And He told me to walk. So I made the journey 300 miles back to Dallas to turn myself in.
Right.
And Judge Bennett had been hearing what I've been doing. She saw the transformation just in my eyes.
Right.
And she says, "I don't want to get in the way.
Right.
I'm going to set you free." And
I can see it's going to be like this whole Morgan Freeman, like, get busy living or get busy dying.
That's right.
kind of thing.
So she said, "Go pay it forward." And here I am 7 years later sitting with you. And
that's great.
And that's what I'm doing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And it was like a paperwork thing, right? The whole reason
they still don't know.
Yeah, they still don't know. Okay, cool.
They still know it's first in state of Texas history. Yeah. And Judge Bennett said, leave it up to you to be Mr. Drama Man.
That's hilarious.
But she's very close to both of Lee and I, and she's one of my closest friends. I call her all the time. We talk maybe 3 times a week.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
She's wonderful.
So well,
she really is.
Enough from you.
Good. I want to hear what Lee has to say.
Exactly.
I'd love to talk about him.
Yeah,
It'll be a lot of.
Right. Well, I was gonna say we need at least we have something here to break up the ugly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well said, Kelly. That's right.
So you got involved because of his story, right? So.
I did. I had a friend named Kay Jones. She came to me and she said, I had raised money for different films. And she said, I have this special story and someone I want you to meet. So I came over and met with Michael. And I just realized real quick, I thought, oh, man, there is so much that he really needs to have ready. We need to get together a nonprofit. We need to have a book written, and then we need to do a film. And so all of these things began, and I remember sitting there with him, and I know,
Well, what was your background? Like, what did you do?
Well, I grew up in the ministry, first of all, which really gave me a lot of experience in this type of work, but also putting together a nonprofit, understanding them and that type of thing. So I was very familiar with it.
Right.
Then I started my own nonprofit. That gets you real familiar with it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I knew at this moment, I thought, this is going to be more work than I've ever done in my life.
Right.
Because this one was national. The ones that I did were statewide and different things.
Right.
But this was a national endeavor. And until I met Michael, I had no idea how many people were on drugs and alcohol and had problems with this. This was
Welcome
not my
aboard.
life. This was not my life. It was totally foreign to me.
Right.
I worked with kids, and I write and produce music. I think you've heard a little bit of that, and so that was my life and was my work. But the more I got to know Michael, all the people that would call him, and I think the ones that got me the most were the parents. It wasn't the people going through addiction.
Yeah,
the thing that got
because we don't give. We don't give a rat's ass like that.
They're the ones they're the ones back here really having to take the hit, and they're having to give the support.
Right.
And that really, really got me, because I think you take one addict, you take that one addict, and then you take all the people that are behind them, the mother, the father, the siblings, the friends, the spouse. And then that's a much bigger group of people than the addicts.
Yeah.
So we've got
that microcosm gets bigger.
Yes. Yeah. And they absolutely don't know what to do. They do not know what to do for their loved one. And that's where Michael really comes in. There's probably more coaching. I don't want to speak for you, but there's more coaching in the families than even the addicts.
100%, yeah.
Because it takes that to get the addict there.
Yeah, exactly. The addict doesn't really care. It's just like, making a plan with the parents, and then, exercising that. Hey, parents, don't enable your kid anymore. We're going to have to shut them down.
That's the fear. That's the fear that parents go through, and it saddens me.
I don't want to
because you want, your natural instinct is to love and to support, that you've done your whole life for a child, and that's not the way this works. So that was really hard for me, because I'm a lover. I would try to love someone into being okay, and sometimes, are you familiar with this?
Oh yeah. My mom, ironically, she wrote a book to families about this whole thing, about our journey, and because
we will be
so
running
much
a
more,
commercial for it here in a little bit
too. So it's the irony runs deep right now. But it's like she started doing FA and all sorts of stuff, because they had to heal too, and they had to learn boundaries. They had to learn all of those things and the addict gets offered so much help all the time,
right?
And then there's just you got to really search for it for families. Right. So she wrote that to kind of raise awareness and do all that stuff. So I'm very familiar with it, and it's like something that saved our life.
Absolutely. And it's been so rewarding to be part of this. It's probably one of the hardest things, like I said, that I've done. I told him, I said, boy, I'm really upset with you. And right before I said I would do it, I was like, man, you know how much work this is going to be.
Right.
And, and it is, it's a lot of work, but man, today looking back, whenever you don't give up and you just keep going, because it can seem hopeless, because what we were doing was the impossible. There's a lot of people talking about it. There's a lot of people, but there's not a lot of people raising millions of dollars to help these people get off drugs and to help their families on how to cope with it, to move forward and be healthy themselves. Because sometimes the families are sicker than the addicts.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And that was really hard for me to understand. I thought, what are you talking? And so it's the families that have really gotten me. But watching all of this play out and watching God work through, I just sat down one day and Michael and I were like, I was just saying, God, please bless this work, because only He could open the doors to make this happen.
Right.
The book and the film, there were times I was thinking, oh man, are we crazy? Is this going to happen? And watching it all unfold it's an amazing feeling to watch God, because I know it wasn't us.
Right.
Yeah.
I 100% know it's not that we were just so great, but just to be faithful in what we felt like God had given us to do and did not give up on it, because sometimes you want to.
Right.
I mean, we were human. I mean, sometimes you really just think, gosh, is this really what you want me to do?
Well, and it's funny because like him and I were talking about this earlier, and just about this space and stuff like that. I mean, I mean, okay, here, dude. I love this. Like, I'm going to be a music producer and a headlining DJ, and I'm going to be a podcaster. Great plan, Kelly. Plan, dude. That sounds like a solid one, dude.
Right.
But I'm just like, God put it in my heart, but then also, I'm just dumb enough to do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's Michael. It's been wonderful. I never would have even leapt into this,
right,
if he did not have the gifts that he has.
Sure.
And, there is definitely that anointing there, that when he works with people, I mean, God moves.
Yeah.
It's just not him. It's that he's so willing. And I really hear God speak through him to these families and to these addicts. And,
well, I think Chad felt that the other night. Definitely.
Yeah. He's got a way with words, man. Because I walked into it. I was like, oh, great, man. Here comes another guy telling a story and blah, blah, blah. And then you really broke it down into ways. And I could tell, when somebody rehearses whenever they're saying a bunch of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And you went off script with that one. And I was like, oh, I got to talk to that guy for sure. And it was fantastic. Everybody in the audience was like, holy crap, dude. I'm trying to not cuss. I said crap, dude. Smash that like button if you like me saying crap. Anyways, so it was really something. And then like I was saying to you earlier, you brought up the point about dealing with the trauma and everything else completely separately from any sort of recovery program, which is fantastic because not a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah. My platform, our platform is, it's not just about drugs and alcohol, and we never wanted it that way. That was kind of the immediate hook because of my story. But the platform is how am I living life today?
Mm-hmm.
And I share everything. I'm vulnerable. I'm transparent. You watch the show and that's what I do. I just provide solutions. And I basically just say, hey, I just saw a good movie today. I want to tell you about it.
Right.
And the movie's me. It's
sure.
The stuff I go through. And when we started writing the book, and let me back up a little bit. There were times I wanted to quit M to the Rock a bunch.
You were doing AM radio, dude.
Yeah, I started with iHeart
yeah.
Radio, and then I went to a Real News Network, and then COVID hit, and bought the studio in the house, and we never stopped M to the Rock.
Right.
But being a businessman and being successful in business, Satan's always in my ear saying, "You ain't making any money. You ain't making any money." And and we just had one recently happen, but there's been times where I literally quit. Mm-hmm. And I walk out and take a walk, and someone pulls up and stops and say, "Are you him too?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm Michael." And they said, "This is my husband here. You saved his life." And I said, well, I didn't save it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he watches the show, and I'm like, okay, I see you, God. And
it's really difficult. A lot comes against you when you try to do this. And especially because I know we were approaching it one way, and then I'm going to stop because I can really go crazy on this.
I want you to go.
Okay.
I'm sick of myself.
Right?
Well, no, it's just that I've been learning that that we don't really believe the problem is just because of drugs and alcohol. We believe that the problem lies within us with so many different traumas and things that people have dealt with that they don't know how to deal with. And in their subconscious, they constantly self-sabotage themselves in every area of life. And drugs and alcohol is one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, they're just, and so that's a lot of it. I mean, people's mental health, that's a big deal. And I don't think that we bring enough focus to that.
Right. Yeah.
Of why people choose it. Because you know what? God doesn't make you do anything. He doesn't make you quit. He didn't make you start.
Right.
But you have to choose it, and being healthy enough.
Right.
Being healthy
well,
enough
and that's
to make
why
those
that's
choices.
why we did the you know, the show, the description of the show is multiple pathways to recovery and mental health, you know.
Right.
So,
That's right.
Because mental health is I think the biggest proponent to, you know, recovery, period.
It's that, and also one of the things, and I was telling Michael, I said, you know what's really apparent to me is that you have these people who will go to rehab, they come out, and their whole entire life, it's not just the drugs and alcohol, it's everything that it's affected, every relationship, their finances, their health.
Yeah.
So part of them getting, in what we do with our nonprofit is that we're trying to treat the whole person. This just isn't, we're not just talking at you about drugs and alcohol.
Right.
You're so much more than that.
Right.
And your future is so much more than what your past was.
Right.
And it doesn't define you. It doesn't define your future. It doesn't have to define who you are. That's not who you are. It didn't label you. Only God can label you.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I think people want to give up and on that because they just feel so bad about themselves and they have so much shame. And that shame, if we don't address that, it's over for that person.
Yeah. Right.
Because if you can't feel good about yourself, and really all the things that people go, you know, and think this is corny, but to love yourself.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's hard when you don't like who you are and what you've been, but learning to do that. And that is the biggest thing in what we're trying to address. I mean, how can somebody really get well and get off drugs if they come home, they don't know how to get their finances straight?
Right.
Their health is so bad after they've come back from something like this. They feel hopeless because of these
there's
reasons.
certain things like that, you know, that especially early on in recovery, you know, just, and I learned this doing the recovery support peer specialist training. But, you know, I mean, most people need their license and just simple things that we take for granted.
Yes.
You know? So,
That was me. And
I've learned all that from him. Like, I didn't even know what people coming out of prison went through. I will tell
yeah,
you.
that's fun.
That's why the recidivism rate is so high, man.
Right.
They have no hope. And I mean, that part of it, except for the people that are struggling, finding shelter. I mean, thank God for them.
Right.
Because, I mean, what would these people do? And so that's heartbreaking to me. So this has been a really big eye-opening thing. My father was in the ministry, and I watched it, but not on the level that Daddy went out. Daddy would go to the prison ministries and everything, and I went a couple of times. And to be honest with you, it scared me.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was something that it just scared me. I did not understand
until
Michael. And there's so much awareness for kids who are on drugs and alcohol, for people coming out of prison. We just recently met a man out of Las Vegas. God bless him, because what he does is he gives these people a trade. He teaches them a trade as soon as they come out of prison, and it sends them out into the world.
Right.
And we're wanting to do that same type of thing with people dealing with drugs and alcohol. But the reason why he's saying it's not just drugs and alcohol is because there's so much more that is covered, and one of them is people's mental health, and learning that God, no matter how much we pray, miracles do happen.
Right.
But we have to be healthy enough to make the right choices for life. And
that's the whole free will thing.
That's right.
You know? Yeah.
That's right. We're free to do whatever we want. God's not going to plop it on us like that.
That's why to get deep, that was always one of my questions was like, you know, if you could ask God to change one thing in the world, and then I would say, you know, to give humankind a greater understanding of purpose.
Yeah.
That would be mine. But then saying that, then I'm like, well, that messes with the whole free will thing.
Yeah.
So,
But you know what I would say? Because this is what, to me, changes the world. If I had one thing to change in this world, it would be me.
Yeah.
Because that's what most people cannot change.
Right.
Because, I mean, you even look at relationships.
Well, if I had one thing to change, it would be Chad.
Hell yeah.
Hey, let's on that inappropriate break, let's go to commercial. Real quick, we got Max the Axe at thispinklawyer.com. If you go to thispinklawyer.com, it will take you to Lone Star Injury Attorneys. He will get you the maximum results for your personal injury needs.
Injury needs, personal stuff.
Good job, Chad.
There you go, man.
All right, and then also your mom has a book out now, and you guys are doing some public speaking. And why don't you play the real, and we'll see if Chad cries this time.
Phone call as a parent that your son has been hit by a car and is being life flighted.
2 hours before we got the call, Chad had called me to tell me it was the best day of his life. And then I get another call, and a stranger had found him, and they were care flighting him to a trauma unit, and that he would start praying for our family that we needed to hurry.
You know, when you wake up on the operating table and they're like, we're going to cut off both your legs, and then I wake up and then one's gone, the other one's in an external rod system, it's just not good. The real kicker is that I've had like all of these scars all over my arms, and that's all from complications resulting from drug abuse.
I never thought about giving up on him. Never. This is my son, and I know he's going to be okay. You cannot just have help for the addict. You have to seek out professional help. The whole family has been affected.
And I just want to make that very clear to anybody who's out there listening, that if I can do this thing as much as I've been through, man, there's a lot of wiggle room for people before they get to that point where they can do it too.
So we are back, but so I love that commercial because at one point you sound so stupid in it. No, but I mean, it's very sweet. And your mom is such a sweetheart. Yeah. And, you're lucky to have her in your life. But you guys, so that book is available. And then y'all are also doing speaking engagements.
Yeah, it's at twocalls.org. You can reach out to either of us there. Chad at twocalls.org or Sheila at twocalls.org.
Right.
And it's on Amazon and all that stuff.
What's your favorite part of that commercial when you talk?
Dude, I just had to edit the commercial before it started, or before we started the podcast the last time, and
you've only had 3 weeks to fix it.
I've only had 3 weeks to fix it. You know what I mean? But it's like, when you're waking up on an operating table and they're going to take both your legs, and then you wake up and it's just not good. And it's I
use your words, Chad.
Yeah, man.
Use your words.
I didn't want to make you look stupid by saying something smart.
Thank you for fucking taking down the bar.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Hey, man, you're welcome.
Hey, so speaking of that, we also have music coming out. We have the Madonna cover that is actually out this Thursday, which will actually be retrospect.
I'm just going to There's your little fade out.
You like the fade out there.
There's your little fade out where it's just like...
Anyway, so that one's streaming right now, also on Beatport. And we've got some other free downloads if they want to go to soundcloud.com/Kelly Reverb. Bunch of good stuff.
Bunch of good stuff. Stuff that's good.
Right.
And a bunch of it.
And there we go. There we have it. Well, okay, so anyway, so back to perspective.
And changing
yourself. I know I kind of cut you off there, but
you're fine. You're fine. You were talking about if you could change one thing in the world, what would it be?
Right.
And used to be, I would come up with all of these things that I would think of, world peace, being the pageant girl, all this stuff. But
that's right. You would have to come up with the doozies.
Oh, they would, and I was never good at that. And, they would give you these lists of things that you were supposed to memorize and say.
Right.
I always chunked that out the window. That never worked for me. I felt so stupid. But there was a time I would say, okay, world peace, save the animals. I love animals. I would think all of the things. But it's funny. Rarely do people, in their first response is to look within. Did I look at myself? Did I change me? And it's funny because as we talk about shows and it not just being about drugs and alcohol, part of, our problem in life are relationships.
Right.
Like how we go forward in our relationships, and we're always thinking about the other person, that if they would just do this one thing, their one thing would be them to change in your mind, right?
Right.
And yet, through a lot of counseling, I started learning that my fears were controlling me to want to change everything around me except myself. That fear was controlling my life. And really, when you look at all of these different problems that people are having, I mean,
it's fear-based.
It's fear-based.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
There's a lot of trauma and fear, and we react from it, and it affects our work. We even self-sabotage that because we don't think that we really deserve great things happening.
Oh, yeah.
Great
Fear of
things starts
success
to
and fear of
happen.
failure, baby.
Yep.
And then we cut it
Welcome
off.
to alcoholism, man.
That's right. That's
Right.
what I'm saying. So we're kind of keeping ourselves down, and we don't realize that really the greatest thing that we can change is ourselves and resentment.
Right. Well,
Anger.
that is why people are like, I'll just stay bulletproof instead.
Yeah. Well,
Which
and they
is not
wonder
the
why
case,
they're in and out of so many relationships, so they're drinking harder at this time and
Yeah.
doing this and doing that. And it's from a lot of deeper issues.
I was going to say now all the pageant coaches now are going to go, okay, maybe let's go Zen on that answer.
They probably don't like me as much.
What do you know? What would you do to change the world? I would look within. It's like, and then they
Now
go,
I would.
okay,
Now
yeah,
I would. I tell you
right.
what. I mean, that was such a wonderful experience. By
Yeah.
the way,
Yeah.
I did it. The nonprofit that I started was
Yeah. What was your nonprofit?
my nonprofit was Teen Leadership Competition.
Okay.
And I started it because when I got back from nationals,
Okay.
I had gotten third runner up. And I had all of these kids.
Nationals for.
The Mrs. America pageant.
Oh wow. Okay.
And
All right.
so I was thrilled. I was so happy with how I did. It was a wonderful experience. But when I got back, I had so many messages from all of these girls saying, "Could you train me? Could you work with me to be in a pageant?"
Right.
And I said, "Okay." Well, I began talking to each one of them, trying to call them back. It was a lot.
Sure.
And so I said, what do you want from this? Do you want? They're like, I want to go to college. I need money to go to school.
Right.
And I realized at that moment I had a much bigger job than just training girls. So I couldn't do that in my heart. I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do. So I called every school in the state. And I mean, I'm going to tell you, I had no money. I'm talking about I was in an efficiency apartment.
Right.
I had zero money. And this is why I was telling you this earlier. I had no money. I had no way to do this. And in fact, everybody told me, don't do it because you can't.
Right.
And so what I did was I had a folding card table, literally. Like I didn't have a table. I had a folding card table and I had a phone book. Back in the day of the phone book.
Right.
I'm dating
It's
myself.
okay. Yeah.
And so
And a landline.
and
to go
a
with it.
landline,
Right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I would sit there and I called every single school in the state, high school.
Okay.
And I said, if I did this program, I talked to the counselor and I said, listen, I have all these girls calling me. One is from your school. And I said, I want to know if you would participate in this program. I said, and I was setting it up for myself. I said, if it cost you nothing,
Right.
okay, would they come and would you support it? And every single one of them said yes. So when they said yes, I called their city and I said, would you, I need this much money for them to come. And it was a year-round program,
Right.
but it was a leadership program. So it wasn't a sink or swim. So they stayed in my program for a week and we would coach them through everything and train them. And then we had a final competition. But everybody left with scholarship. I didn't let my girls leave without that. That was the difference. This was not a beauty pageant, and which I'm not
Right.
against it.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with it. I was in it. But I wanted something that bettered women. That made me happy. I wanted women to be able to go to college. I didn't want them if that's what they wanted to do.
Right.
I didn't go to college.
Sure.
I didn't go to college. So that was the first thing the press asked me, and I had a talk show at that time. And I was working that talk show to help this. And I told him, and I said, wow, this is going to be really uncomfortable, because that was the first thing everybody would ask me.
No,
and
right?
I just said, and it was just so God, because I sat there and I said to them, I said, you know what? I didn't go to college, but I said, all these girls do, and presented a need to me, and I met it.
Right. Well, you should be like, no, this is why, because I didn't go to college. I didn't have the opportunity that these girls now have.
Right on. Well, I was fortunate. I was very fortunate to be able to walk in and do some of the things that I did.
Yeah.
God had just
well,
given
and
me
I mean,
some
a little
gifts.
savvy. I mean, like calling both sides and setting up,
it was
a program. Yeah.
It really was. It was the most rewarding thing I've ever done until this.
Yeah.
And in fact, I flew to New York. I was writing and producing and singing music. I was doing all these things. But then when I got back to this was my heart.
Right.
I mean, my heart was in ministry.
Right.
And in a ministry that wasn't in the approach of your typical ministry, a true outreach program is what I like to call it.
Right.
We truly needed an outreach program that treated the whole person.
Yeah.
And that eventually got them out of talking about drugs and alcohol all the time and dwelling on that and really concentrating on the things that.
Speaking of that, so tell folks what you do out there with the foundation. Yeah.
Well, it's I just love listening to her talk. I love this woman. I mean, I absolutely love this woman.
Yeah.
She's just, when she speaks, she says something, and this is what it's like at home. I just listen to her, and it's the first time we've ever done an interview together.
You
so
must be
This
exhausted.
is
I'm kind of
exclusive.
He's tired.
I'm just kind of a little emotional because I'm in gratitude, that someone who believes in me and I believe in her.
Right.
And we do make a good team, and we are a power couple. And it's really cool to hear. But it was her idea. I mean, it was Lee's idea about doing the nonprofit. Lee is very creative, and I'm the home builder in me is keeping everything in line. And she's a new idea every day, but they're never bad. I've never said no to any of them.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's a process in order to get to it. And
sure.
So we wanted to create a nonprofit that wasn't your just typical nonprofit, and, where we feed to it, and it's basically to help everyone.
Okay.
And it leads into we're all addicts. We have to stop focusing on addiction and turn the focus on why the addiction.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the trauma, it's the pain and the suffering, and the reason why we do drugs and alcohol or whatever visible thing we're doing to change the way we feel is because we're trying to ease the pain and suffering,
right.
and it doesn't work.
Or change the perception.
Change the perception.
Yeah.
And the reason why drug addicts and alcoholics have this stigma is because the people who are angry and upset with us by what we do, the reason why they're angry and upset with us, even though they don't drink or do drugs, is because they see their own behaviors in me.
Right.
They're just not shooting dope and drinking alcohol. Thank God my consequences were so severe. What about the guy that's right down here on McKinney working in a $1 billion company that is addicted to gambling?
Right.
Or is addicted to golf or stuff like that, and he's just empty and hollow. And so what are the consequences there? A long, dark life.
Yeah.
So we want to deliver a message where everybody's nodding their head up and down.
Right.
And I can relate to her. I can relate to him. And that's where the connection came with us when we met.
Right.
Is that, I was in a dark place,
right.
and God put Lee right in my life, and we just talked, and she simply said these 3 words: I believe in you.
Right.
And I don't even know her,
Right.
I actually told him he was a rock star.
A rock star. That's right. That's right.
I said, you know what? I think
I see something in you.
Oh,
right?
I saw it. I truly did. I mean, the first time it was in a Starbucks with Kay. And I was watching this guy, and you know what? He was under a lot of pressure to really move forward. It was that moment where you either stay where you are or you quit, or it's time to go to that
Sink or
next
swim,
level.
baby.
And you really have to. It takes a lot within you to do that, because this has been a lot. And so he was ready, but I knew he was at that moment. So the second time we talked, it was like, hey, you know what? And I was listening to him, and I knew he had been through a lot, and it was going to take a lot to really, gear up. But I told him, I said, you're a rock star, and I know it, and I'm ready to go. I said, I'm mad at you because I see it, and I know how much work it's going to be.
Right.
I cannot stress that. But it was.
But I believe in
worth
her.
it.
I believe in her, and she she leaned in, and there was a connection. She really truly cared and didn't want anything.
Right.
And I wasn't used to that. I was always used to someone taking from me or hitting me, or
wanting
all that stuff. All the way to childhood trauma and these triggers. And so I took the risk and leaned in. So it's not like we had this very first romantic date and went out. We were friends and on the desk and working
coworkers.
and coworkers. And then it was really cool how this just true intimacy bond built, and I'm forever grateful for that. But the nonprofit is to provide these solutions to people, treatment centers, all that stuff. And we can do scholarships to treatment, but we're going to give them the best. We're going to give them the best, but you have to qualify.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. You have to get it passed by me, because I know how you can't run game on me. And Lee's seen it, and so that's what we do with the nonprofit. But it's everyone is an addict. Right. And addiction is we're seeking visible things to try to fix our invisible problems.
Shopping and food. This is why Ozempic is so big. If you want to know the epidemic of food, see the rise in Ozempic. Are you familiar with it?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So it just shows you how many addictions, and we have things that just aid in it to where you don't get better in it, where you don't really we get a pill. We get a pill.
Everything's a Band-Aid.
Yes.
Well, I think that speaks to our healthcare system a lot.
Well, I'm not saying, and I love it. I think it works. I think it's all wonderful. I think if it helps your health, wonderful. Yeah. But my point being, is that you see, like when that, like with food or anything else. I mean, what an issue it is within this country.
Yeah.
How many people just could not get
addicted to sugar?
That's right.
Well, what we talk about is, and it's real simple. The way I wordsmith it is that there's nothing wrong with being successful. There's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with having nice things. Okay. Right. There's nothing wrong with even in mental health, medically assisted treatment. Okay. As long as it doesn't become my source.
You're right. Yeah.
As long as it doesn't become my source, because when it becomes my source, I am in active addiction. And in order to keep it as my source, all right, what do we start doing? We start lying, cheating, and manipulating, and all these things that come up. So true spirituality is, number one, is to love yourself and forgive yourself.
Right.
And that was the hardest thing for me to do. Because she sees me, I'm very hard on myself.
Well, and I think a lot of it, but also is, people want to be accepted and also feel worth, like, what can I do? What do I have to offer, And I think that's also a big part of it, and once you find your lane, Chad was like, once you started producing and you found out that you were good at it and you were getting validated, then you were all in,
Yeah, but like it's still, it's talking about how something externally is going to fix the way I feel internally.
That's every human being.
Every single human being in the world has that.
Right.
And like some things are worse than others for sure. But I'll tell you what, the feeling of peace internally, no matter what is happening externally, is something you just cannot pay for when you finally get it.
Making it a habit. I'm going to tell you something. This is the thing. Just because somebody got motivated from Michael's I Am Second video,
right?
You have to have outreach after that. Because you get motivated and you're excited and you feel like you can do anything, right? I feel like I can just rule the world at that point. And then by that evening, you're back down because the same habits and the same things that you do over and over again are still there.
Yeah.
That's what's great about if you follow someone like Michael every day and you listen to it for your motivation, because eventually, even that show, it's going to become a habit. You're changing the way, and so that show can become a habit, getting good information can become a habit, rather than all the other things that you're doing. And by the way, I'm convinced that half of the people are just bored by the time they get home. They drink and do drugs. They're just bored.
Yeah.
I mean, is this true?
I can see it. Yeah.
I see that
just out of boredom. Yeah.
And we try to feel.
Yeah. So they're seeking visible things.
They try. Yeah. I mean, they're getting on dating sites. They're doing that. I mean, nothing natural is happening. Nothing organic is happening. And so I'm just saying, if we change just one thing and start changing these habits, you know what it's really doing? It's rewiring your brain.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
don't
That's the
think
whole
people
thing
get
with
that.
addiction
Well,
treatment.
and
I work in addiction
that's
treatment.
what they
and
say
it's-
in addiction.
It is simply rewiring your brain.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
because
really what
you
it
have
is.
neural
If you
pathways
frame
that
it-
have been carved.
If you frame it like that in the beginning, people are like, stay away from me,
Yeah.
you know? But
That's right.
if they start to
Isn't that
realize
true?
it, it's just retraining your brain. That's
right.
That's
'Cause
right.
whatever the time is that you've used or drank or whatever it is, because at some point it does become an issue. Because, not everybody starts off to the races. I did, but not everybody's like that.
Yeah.
And I see it all the time, because you guys were talking about the whole like trauma and all that stuff. They intertwine, like the later on down the road that you get with it, whether they started because of it or whatever. But these things happen over time in their using and drinking. And now, like, I don't know the exact percentage, but a smooth 95 to 97% of the people I see that check into treatment, it's co-occurring.
Yeah.
There's no more.
Oh,
It's dual shit.
Yeah.
It's sorry, I should have said crap. But it is, man, and it's like gone are the days when people just drank because they felt bad. You know what I mean? In the 1930s, and then they just drank so much that they had to keep drinking.
Hold on, is that when people felt bad?
I don't know, man, but there's a mental health aspect to everything now that we know more about
Right,
it, that
well,
we can
I
do
thi-
more things
Yeah.
with it.
I think now that people are actually just realize that it's a part, that needs to be addressed, if you don't want to talk about it or do not deal with it, then your life is just going to remain a shit show.
Yeah,
know.
dude, I had PTSD from my car accident and all that stuff, which spiraled me out into opiates. And you couldn't even approach me with it. I was in jail for 20 months, and then I went to treatment for 2 months. And until that 22nd month, I couldn't have been approached to talk about it.
Yeah.
And then when I finally did, and I got approached by somebody who framed it like just exactly how I needed it to be framed, we did a lot of work on it, and it was absolutely insane.
Right.
Like the difference.
Do you think that Christians are afraid to approach it on a clinical level of saying, how is my brain? Because that's what I have
I think
found.
everybody's afraid to approach it like that.
And because you don't want to know why. Because to me, I think that people are just so afraid to actually work on themselves. It's just too hard. I think you can change everything else. But we went to Dr. Kelly, and he's amazing. I absolutely love this man, and he taught me so much because I was raised in a Christian home. And when I very first went, I was so kind of afraid because I thought I wasn't honoring God by saying, God, fix this problem. God can do anything. But the one thing that started dawning on me is that if I get sick, I go to a doctor about my cold. I go to the doctor about anything else. But the wiring in my brain and what's going on in my head to making me make these choices in my subconscious, that was all new to me. And I was afraid that I wasn't trusting God. But what it was that really I was taking responsibility for my life. God wants us to take care of ourselves. And it's not just from here down, right? This is the most powerful organ in our body, and we have to take care of it. And we've abused it because we hate ourselves for the things that we've done. And so it's a big thing. And I started learning this from Dr. Kelly, and I was afraid as a Christian. And now I'm so glad that I took the responsibility to take care of myself so that the bottom line is I can make better choices with the choices that God has given me on this earth and the time that he has given me. I'm responsible. Or else you're just always praying for the miracle.
Right.
Do you always want to be saying, I've got myself in such a mess. I need the miracle.
Foxhole, man.
Well,
Right.
the way I look at it, it's like it's all just a roller coaster ride, and you might as well enjoy it, man.
Right.
Well, that's true. But you
Yeah.
know what? It actually empowers you
Yeah.
to know that, hey, don't be afraid to take care of yourself. Today you can make this choice, and guess what? God will bless you
Right.
and honor you for that. And I believe that's what he's done with us, is because it had to be a step of faith. Because when we started this was with nothing.
Right.
I was back to that same
Sure.
place of,
Yeah. And I was still
that's a
there.
miracle.
I was still there.
Yeah.
I was still there.
No,
Let
everything.
me touch on something real quick.
Yeah.
When we started writing the book, 300 miles, it really was a blessing for me because I was going back in the past, but I wasn't feeling resentful or angry or anything like that. But we hear the word trigger, and it was really triggering me, and I I was in a bad place. You know, when I say bad place for me, I was in a bad place up here. Yeah. And then I started learning in our relationship the things that we do to trigger, each other. And I literally, this is just recently, about 2 months ago, that I literally went down and hung out with Dr. Rob Kelly in San Antonio for 6 days.
Yeah.
For 6 days. And really, I've been really diving into my childhood trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had this amazing breakthrough.
Yeah.
90.
It was 90 breath work, therapy. And it was, and I thought it was hocus pocus, crap stuff. And but I did. I leaned in. I said, I'm willing to go to any lengths.
You have to fight feeling silly.
Because you've got to want it.
Yeah,
and that's not the most pleasant thing to deal with.
And when I get in a bad place, I get quiet.
Yeah.
And when I get quiet, it scares her,
right.
and when it scares her, and then there's friction there. And so I said, I got to go do this, and had this huge awakening. And literally when I left San Antonio, Dr. Kelly says, be prepared.
Right.
Your life is going to be changed forever. And without getting into all the therapy and stuff, but I left there, and I didn't call Lee or anything like that. Say, hey, I'm healed. Everything's great. I'm processing what happened. It was another spiritual awakening. My phone's blowing up driving home from one of the largest podcasts all over the country wanting me to be on their show.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, wow, all the stuff that's happening and everything blowing up and doing.
Yeah, and that was I Am Second, right?
No. This is just recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just recently. And so stay tuned. There's a podcast that we're going to be on that is just amazing.
Right.
And so it's all.
Besides
all happening.
Besides this being.
No.
He forgets that.
But it's just amazing that. My whole mission really is to help people see life through God's perspective and not the world's.
Zoom out.
That's right. What does that mean? We go back to the things that were done wrong to us, and we see it. We pull ourselves up and look down the situation and go, I see why you allowed that to happen. We're gifted. Her story, her story growing up, and it's unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
But when we look back at it, and we're gifted, and now we have a gift that we can go share with others to help them.
Yeah.
Being sexually abused my entire childhood by my grandfather, and as a result of forgiving him and being open and sharing, instead of campaigning down the street with a cardboard box on a stick saying, free Lindsay.
Right,
It's as I'm going the other way, making a difference, saying, you know what, this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
And here's a solution.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, man, it's when you finally are able to zoom out and see past your own two eyes, and you see the reasons behind, or what you can justify as the reasons behind what happened to you,
awakening.
Be able to share it with somebody else. Everything when things just start kind of clicking.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, man, you can't pay for that.
I tell you, and I'll end with this. 3 years ago, M2 The Rock was done in my eyes. Right. It was done. All right. And because, broke. I've been broke the whole 7 years. I just keep serving.
Sure.
And it provides. It just happens, right? I've heard stories like that before I believed in God. And I go, y'all are crazy.
Right.
When God put Lee into my life, all right, it hasn't been easy.
Right.
But we've remained faithful. We've remained communicative. We communicate to each other. We lean on each other. But it wouldn't be here where it's at today without Lee.
Right.
You have to make that out there. It would not be here where it is today without Lee, because M2 The Rock is blowing up.
Right.
Blowing me away.
Well, okay. So speaking of that, where can you have a show as well? Mm-hmm. So where can they see that? B, is the book done? And C, when does the movie come out?
So the book, we have Krishanda Lee Perez, who's this incredible author
awesome.
out of Los Angeles.
Awesome.
Very engaged in the story. We finished it. We're in editing right now. We go to publishing, and the book will be released for sale September 15th.
Okay.
Awesome.
And I'll be on national book tour.
15th.
We just signed with a publicist, and that's being released soon.
Yeah, that's the one thing I noticed about M2 The Rock is you have your shit together, dude. I'm like, dude, I need that.
I am very structured.
Reading? Yeah.
I'm
And
very
we
structured.
appreciate you. We really appreciate
well, I
being
appreciate
here
you. I appreciate
us
y'all.
voice.
I appreciate y'all
Yes.
slumming.
No.
Slumming it down here.
We
No.
love it.
No, we
It's
do
been
it.
awesome. You guys have been great.
I'm on at least 1 or 2 every week. It doesn't
Okay.
matter what the platform is. I just do it because it keeps me out of self.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Every week, I'm always reading to Uwe.
Right.
It starts there. Just keep reading to someone who can't read.
Right. I like that. I like that a lot. Well, I appreciate you guys
Thank you,
coming
guys.
on, and I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
the movie and
Yeah.
what role I play in it.
Yeah, man.
You'll be a guard.
Right? I'll be a prison guard.
Yeah, with your mace.
You will have a job in that movie. No.
That's funny. Hey, well, I appreciate you coming out there, Chad.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
Well,
you,
and,
Chad. You're
and then
welcome,
we
Kelly.
look,
Thank you,
we look
Chad.
forward to your public speaking and your mom.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I like it.
And Lee is not for hire.
Oh yeah. Oh, hey, no.
He's all mine.
Yeah, no. Just introduce me to a friend that can facilitate.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thrilled.
Anyway, but appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to like, subscribe, all that stuff. I believe we have your good friend Christopher coming on next week.
My man, Christopher
Yeah.
Wright.
Yeah.
Love him.
He can
and his
sing.
wife.
Yeah,
can
right.
sing.
Yes.
That's what I hear, man.
He's got a good story.
All right. Well, looking forward to that. Be sure like, subscribe, all that mumbo jumbo, and remember, kids, there is no magic pill for sobriety because if there was, we would all take too many.
That's right.